How far would you go to chase perfection, or to hide a secret that could destroy you? The case of Violetta Arden isn't just about a missing ballerina. It's about a string of chilling disappearances, a theater haunted by whispers, and a woman whose flawless talent seemed to come at a mysterious, terrible price. Every clue points to a dancer who never belonged. Every missing person draws the circle tighter. What really happened behind those velvet curtains, and how could so many simply vanish in the shadows? I urge you, watch until the very end, because the truth here is darker than any spotlight. Have your own theory or chills to share? I truly want to hear your thoughts below. Thank you for being here. Now let's see how this story unfolds. The year 1956, Chicago. The city's vibrant art scene was about to be electrified and shadowed by a talent as enigmatic as she was brilliant. In January, a young woman named Violetta Arden, purportedly 22 years of age, walked into the financially struggling Terman Theatre. Almost overnight, she wasn't just a member of the corps de ballet. She was its principal dancer, its newly crowned queen. Her debut in Swan Lake was nothing short of a sensation. Critics, typically a jaded lot, scrambled for superlatives. Superhuman technique, they wrote. A mesmerizing, almost hypnotic stage presence. The Terman Theatre, a venerable institution founded in 1923, had been teetering on the brink. Horace Blackwell, who had taken the reins as artistic director just the year before, in 1955, was desperately hunting for a star, a spark to reignite the theatre's dimming fortunes. In Violetta Arden, he seemed to have found a supernova, yet her ascent was as clouded in mystery as her origins. Violetta's submitted resume was a patchwork of impressive claims, riddled with inconsistencies. It spoke of training at the illustrious Mariinsky School in Leningrad, a brief, unverified stint with a Parisian ballet company, prestigious affiliations that, upon closer, albeit later, scrutiny, proved frustratingly difficult to confirm. Adel Zwara, the Terman's seasoned casting director, would later concede, with a measure of professional discomfort, that standard vetting protocols had been conspicuously bypassed. The reason? Blackwell's uncharacteristic, almost fervent insistence. According to Wara, Blackwell had signed Violetta Arden after witnessing a mere 5 minutes of her dancing. I'd never seen him so utterly convinced, so fast, Wara recounted, a statement that, in retrospect, carried an ominous weight. Whatever the irregularities in her paperwork, Violetta's talent was undeniable. Tickets to her performances vanished the moment they went on sale. Her rendition of Giselle in February was lauded not just for its technical perfection, but for an emotional depth that critics described as profound, almost preternatural. Offstage, however, the captivating sylph transformed. Violetta Arden was distant, aloof, her demeanor described by some colleagues as almost robotic. She volunteered little about her past, cultivated no close relationships within the tightly knit ballet troupe, and frequently chose to practice alone, often late into the night, long after the theatre's creaks and groans were its only other occupants. Her living arrangements were a closely guarded secret. No one in the company knew her address. She consistently declined the offer of a company car or arranged transport, preferring to manage her own comings and goings, melting into the Chicago night as silently as she arrived. It wasn't long before the dazzling glow of Violetta's stardom began to cast unsettling shadows. A disquieting undercurrent rippled through the Terman. Members of the troupe started reporting a series of unusual and increasingly unnerving occurrences. Personal items would vanish from dressing rooms, only to reappear days later in odd places, or not at all. Unexplained noises, whispers, a faint melody, the soft swish of a skirt, would echo through the empty theater after hours. Some dancers spoke of an oppressive feeling of being watched during their most private rehearsals, even when they were seemingly alone. Then came the disappearances. The first was Alan Orwood, the head of wardrobe, a man known for his punctuality and dedication. On March 12, 1956, he simply didn't show up for work. 3 days later, When colleagues concerned by his uncharacteristic absence finally gained access to his apartment, they found it meticulously, almost unnaturally clean. There was no sign of struggle, no indication of foul play, just an eerie sense of order. On a small table lay an envelope. Inside was enough cash to cover 2 months' rent and a short typewritten note. The note curiously stated that Pruitt, not Orwood, had accepted a position elsewhere and had to leave immediately. The police investigation that followed was cursory at best. Terman Theatre management, eager to avoid any negative publicity that might tarnish their newfound star, provided documents suggesting Orwood had resigned for personal reasons. His bank account remained untouched. Frantic calls to his few known relatives yielded nothing. No one had heard from him. Less than a month later, on April 2nd, Lorada Semmons, a promising member of the Corps de Ballet, who had recently been selected as Violetta's understudy for the upcoming production of Coppelia, vanished. She attended the morning rehearsal, a picture of diligence, then failed to return after the lunch break. Her roommate, returning to their shared apartment that evening, found Seaman's side of the room completely cleared out, her belongings gone as if she'd never lived there. Blackwell, quick to manage the narrative, issued a press release claiming Simmons had impulsively decided to seek opportunities in New York. This explanation, however, was later thoroughly refuted by casting agencies and ballet companies in New York, none of whom had any record of Lorada Semmons making inquiries or attending auditions. By the end of April 1956, the unease within the Terman Theatre had curdled into a palpable fear. Patricia Wellen, a lighting technician who had worked closely with both the missing Alan Orwood and Lorada Semmons, became the third to disappear. Her apartment, unlike Orwood's, showed clear signs of a hasty, interrupted departure. A half-packed suitcase lay open on her bed, its contents spilling out. Perishable food still sat in the refrigerator, and in her typewriter, investigators found the most chilling piece of evidence yet, an unfinished letter. In it, Wellen expressed her growing anxiety about the strange occurrences at the theatre. She wrote of her fears, of a creeping dread she couldn't shake. Most significantly, she specifically mentioned what she termed V's unusual behavior during the late-night solitary rehearsals Violetta was known for. Despite these alarming disappearances, operations at the Terman Theatre continued without interruption. Violetta Arden's performances remained the hottest ticket in town. Management actively discouraged any discussion or speculation about the missing personnel, dismissing the concerns as little more than professional jealousy directed at their brilliant new star, a convenient explanation that did little to quell the growing terror in the darkened wings. Despite these alarming disappearances, operations at the Terman Theatre continued without interruption. Violetta Arden's performances remained the hottest ticket in town. Management actively discouraged any discussion or speculation about the missing personnel, dismissing the concerns as little more than professional jealousy directed at their brilliant new star, a convenient explanation that did little to quell the growing terror in the darkened wings. But not everyone was content to accept these facile explanations. Conrad Maynard, a 34-year-old technician who had joined the Terman Theatre in February 1956, was a man of methodical precision, a former military engineer whose mind naturally gravitated towards logic and problem-solving. The disappearance of Patricia Wellen in late April, a colleague with whom he had a cordial working relationship, was the catalyst that transformed his unease into active inquiry. Maynard, as evidenced by his meticulously kept personal journal, began a systematic, covert investigation into the strange happenings at the Terman. His first step was to establish a timeline. He noted with growing alarm that each disappearance correlated with Violetta Arden's performance and rehearsal schedule. More pointedly, each of the vanished individuals, Alan Orwood, Lorada Semmons, and Patricia Wellen, had experienced prolonged, specific interactions with Violetta shortly before they went missing. Orwood had been tasked with preparing Violetta's unique, custom-fitted costumes. Simons had been designated as her understudy, requiring close observation of the star, and Wellen had been responsible for adjusting the complex lighting cues for Violetta's late-night solo practice sessions. By early May, Maynard's journal entries detailed further anomalies. He observed that certain storage areas within the vast theatre were frequently, inexplicably, reorganized, despite no maintenance being scheduled. He documented recurring electrical issues, particularly concentrated in the East Wing, the isolated area where Violetta often practiced alone. Most unsettlingly, he recorded accounts from other staff members who reported experiencing sudden, acute bouts of disorientation in specific backstage corridors, a fleeting sense of a space not being as it should. On May the 10th, while searching through the theatre's dusty archives, ostensibly for old wiring diagrams, Maynard made a significant discovery. He found Violetta Arden's official personnel file. The photograph attached, while clearly her, showed subtle differences in her appearance compared to more recent candid shots he'd observed. But tucked within the same folder, almost as an afterthought, was a faded newspaper clipping dated 1953. It was from a Cleveland newspaper detailing the debut of a promising young dancer named Violet Ashford. The photograph accompanying the article was an exact match for the Violetta Arden he knew. His research into Violet Ashford unearthed a disturbing pattern. Ashford had been involved in a controversial avant-garde ballet in Cleveland, a production that was abruptly shut down following the sudden, unexplained death of its director. Prior to that, 3 other unexplained disappearances had occurred at that same Cleveland theatre, all before Violet Ashford reportedly departed for Europe. The parallels were too chilling to ignore. 5 days later, on May 15th, acting on a hunch, Maynard explored a little-used, dust-choked storage area beneath the main stage. There, hidden behind decaying props, he found a small collection of personal items, a tarnished silver insignia, identified as belonging to Alan Orwood, and a worn rehearsal notebook with Lorada Simmons's name inscribed on the cover. His journal entry for May 17th detailed his clandestine observation of Violetta's late-night practice. Her movements seem different when she thinks no one is watching, he wrote. Sharper, more precise, almost mechanical. I caught her twice today looking directly at me in the reflection of the practice mirror, even though her back should have been turned. Her awareness is acute. I've secured the found items from under the stage in my personal locker. They are evidence. The climax of Maynard's secret investigation, and indeed his life, arrived on the night of May 23, 1956. At 8:17 p.m. he signed the logbook, indicating he was performing evening maintenance checks, likely believing the vast theatre to be otherwise empty. His final, increasingly frantic journal entries from that night paint a terrifying picture. Around 10:30 p.m., he wrote, "Music from the main stage. Faint, investigating." He then described observing Violetta Arden dancing alone on the dimly lit stage, her movements of inhuman precision. He noted with a creeping dread that she occasionally spoke aloud, as if in conversation, though she was demonstrably, utterly alone. Approximately 45 minutes later, around 11:15 p.m., Maynard witnessed Abigail Monroe, a young, ambitious dancer in the corps, enter the theatre. Monroe approached Violetta on the stage. Maynard, concealed in the control booth, could not hear their conversation clearly, but he saw Violetta's demeanor shift dramatically when Monroe appeared to mention something about news articles, likely the Cleveland connection Maynard himself had uncovered. Conrad Maynard's final journal entry, scrawled hastily, read, "V's posture changed suddenly. Cold. Monroe tried to leave but collapsed after V merely touched her shoulder. No weapon seen. Monroe is not moving. V is now observing the control booth as if she is aware of my presence. Must alert authorities. Immediately." Security camera footage from the stage door corroborated part of his desperate timeline. It showed Maynard exiting the technical booth at 11:27 p.m., clearly agitated, hurrying towards the administrative office where the only reliable telephone was located. The recording stopped abruptly at 11:31 p.m. The official explanation, a sudden power loss in that specific circuit. The following morning, May 24th, Abigail Monroe was discovered in one of the theater's auxiliary dance halls. She was disoriented, confused, with no recollection of the previous night's events. Doctors diagnosed her with an acute neurological episode of unknown origin. Conrad Maynard did not report for his shift. He was not at his apartment. he had vanished. On May 31st, 1956, Conrad Maynard's body was found in the labyrinthine space beneath the main stage. The official cause of death was listed as accidental electrocution sustained during unauthorized maintenance work. However, investigator James Carraway, in unofficial notes that would only surface years later, expressed doubts. Carraway noted that the specific electrical system implicated in Maynard's death had been recently inspected and certified as safe, yet it now showed distinct signs of deliberate, sophisticated tampering. Conrad Maynard's personal effects, including his crucial journal and the contents of his locker, the evidence he had so carefully collected, were never recovered. On June 7, 1956, Horace Blackwell abruptly announced the temporary closure of the Terman Theatre, citing vague structural issues. A hastily issued press release stated that Violetta Arden had accepted a prestigious position with the Vienna National Ballet and had departed Chicago immediately. Subsequent inquiries revealed no record of Violetta Arden joining any European ballet company. The Vienna National Ballet flatly denied extending an invitation to any American dancer matching her description. The Terman Theatre eventually reopened in April 1957 under new management. Horace Blackwell had resigned his position in September 1956, citing ill health, and promptly moved to South America. Later, financial audits of the Terman revealed a series of large, unexplained cash withdrawals from the theatre's accounts during Blackwell's final months as director. The ghosts of the Terman were not so easily exorcised. In 1958, during renovations to the theatre's East Wing, workers stumbled upon a sealed-off storage space. Inside, they found more personal items belonging to the vanished Alan Orwood and Larada Semmons. The discovery briefly reopened the police investigation, but it was quickly closed again, citing a lack of clear evidence of foul play. Then, in 1962, a group of architecture students studying the Terman's historic structure discovered a completely walled-off, forgotten room beneath the East Wing stage. The room contained a bizarre collection of stage costumes from various theatrical periods and, most disturbingly, a meticulously arranged collection of pointe shoes. Each shoe was carefully labeled with a different female name and a date, spanning from 1937 all the way to 1956. Police logged the find, but ultimately dismissed it as an eccentric form of theatre archival storage. The disappearances at the Terman Theatre in 1956 remain officially unsolved. Yet, the story of Violetta Arden, or whatever her true name was, didn't end there. Between 1957 and 1963, at least 3 other American ballet companies reported brief, impactful encounters with exceptionally talented, enigmatic dancers who matched Violetta's description. Each of these engagements was followed by a series of unexplained staff departures or unsettling incidents. In every instance, the mysterious dancer vanished before any concrete link could be established to the chilling events in Chicago. The last widely recorded sighting of a woman believed to be Violetta Arden occurred at the Detroit Metropolitan Ballet in November 1963. A dancer performing under the name Victoria Onstron, whose talent and appearance mirrored Violetta's, abruptly departed the company after fielding pointed questions from Chicago-based journalists who were investigating the historical patterns of disappearances at the Terman. No confirmed sightings have been reported since, though whispers persist in the insular world of ballet, rumors of an ageless phantom dancer of perfect, almost terrifying technique, a presence that comes with an unspoken, inexplicable price for those who fall into her orbit.